Right now, I feel like Acheron ruined the game, or rather, Acheron ruined the community's perception of what the community is looking at in terms of damage. That's kind of messed up. It's twisted. Right now, a lot of people are looking at Acheron as the new damage check, and it should not be the case. Acheron is the anomaly. I briefly talked about this earlier when we were kind of clarifying some of the statements that I made during the tier list video. Acheron is the anomaly. She is not the she shouldn't be the standard into what we're talking about for damage. And the reason she's the exception, not the rule. Yes, exactly. The reason I say that is because Acheron's damage, one, I told y'all about this. Two, Acheron's not a character where like hitting a million as easily as she does is normal. Let's go and like, I guess we can break this down from a from the character perspective. Let's look at characters from this perspective on damage. The first character that I saw personally to hit a million was Argenti. Argenti has conditions to hit this million. Multiple characters on the field. He needs all the damage, right? The buffing and whatnot, and a little bit of luck, a little bit of really good builds, if you will. There was the moment where, and no offense to Smack, right? But Smack did it first. Compared to Venturine's damage output to Acheron's damage output. I know he caught a lot of flack for that from his own comment section. And then I think he clarified a little bit on it. But ultimately, even that is a little bit of extreme, right? Swan to Acheron, Blade to Acheron, Boot Hill to Acheron. The newer characters coming out, right? Some of these I'm not going to click on for obvious reasons because they would lead into leaks. I don't want to do that. Like Jade and Firefly. But even though I don't think, probably doesn't have any data on them, but point being is that now we're gonna get to a point where like Boot Hill's damage, when you see Boot Hill, the first thing out of somebody's mouth, something Boot Hill damage compared to Acheron. When Firefly gets here, something Firefly damage compared to Acheron. Same thing with Jade, something damage output compared to Acheron. That should not be the case. We have lost the standard for what we should be comparing to these characters, right? Blade is Blade. He's always been whatever damage output. There needs to be a standard damage output in total that we're comparing that to. Acheron is the only one really easily hitting a million damage, if not something close to a million damage, without any real conditions being fulfilled. She didn't set a new standard. That's the thing. She exceeded what the standard was. The standard at this time, or let's say pre-Acheron, right? Pre-Acheron, the standard characters to look at for DPS would have been Dill Pickle, Ratio, Jingliu, and Zila. And if I'm keeping it very like strict, it would have been Zila and either Jingliu or Dill Pickle. These were typically the standard. Whose damage are we comparing this to? One of these three characters would have been the damage we're comparing to. Acheron exceeded that by leagues. She exceeded that. That doesn't mean that she becomes the new standard. Your standard line is here. Acheron did this, and that should have been the end of that, right? She exceeded what the standard. That doesn't change the standard. She just jumped over it. The standard is still there. When Boot Hill comes out, he should still be compared to Jingliu, Dill Pickle, or Zila. When Firefly comes out, she should be compared to Dill Pickle, Jingliu, or Zila, so on and so forth, right? Because that's where everyone else that we've already had DPS characters for, we've already compared their damage to that. When a Venturine is doing damage and we're talking about damage, he should be compared to Jingliu, Zila, and Dill Pickle, and then moved down from there. Where do you place this character? How does that work? So if someone exceeds the standard, the line that we've already set, then they can get closer to Acheron, right? Now, if Boot Hill comes out of the gate and he's doing a million damage, then he's exceeded the standard. He goes up there with Acheron. I doubt he's going to do that, but if he did, then by all means. Same thing with Firefly, same thing with Jade. And even then, you still have to look into it from a kit perspective. I'm not going to compare Jade's kit being what we saw, Quantum Erudition. I'm not going to compare this character's kit to like Zila or Boot Hill, who have single target high. They're supposed to have single target high damage. And I'm just going to say, oh, well, Jade's not outputting the same damage that Zila would output with a single ultimate technique. So Jade is, no. If anything, I'll compare Jade to Jingyuin or Jade to, where's she at? Himiko, right? Something like that, where I'm like, okay, you know what? I can compare this to hitting multiple enemies because that's what they do. Dill Pickle would even be a pretty good representation of that because he's already seen as one of the stronger blast damage characters. You could compare Jay to something like that. Argenti, anything like that. You know what's funny is the more that I've looked into Starrel as far as like how we would calculate what's going on, the more I've started to lean towards per cycle, like damage per cycle, or I guess it would be like damage per cycle or damage per round instead of damage over X amount of cycles. I think if we looked at it more so like how much damage can this character do within this one cycle, that would drastically change how we look at characters. Because a character like Himiko over time, right? Himiko could progressively ramp herself up, or rather she will get ramped up so that she's outputting a little bit more damage over time. Firefly is a character that, from what I've seen, and I'm not going to talk about leaks, but Firefly is definitely any break character is a ramp up character. This is what I was going to mention with the thing that I wanted to say, like with, I don't know if Rihu's going to talk about it or not, but break and the meta behind break, I don't think is ready yet. Like it's not competitively viable yet, because in order for break to have its damage, one, you're not focused on crit, and two, you have to break the enemy. If you're not outright bussing down the enemy, done. And the reason I say that, because like, so Sarah, right? You're saying it's ready, but are you saying it's ready under the pretense that you don't have Mei and Harmony MC? I'll even just allow Harmony MC. I'll say like just having Harmony MC, but to have Harmony MC, Ruan Mei, some other buffer or sustain, and then your break unit, you need both. Exactly. You need both. It's not ready yet. It's not competitively viable yet. And even then, you still need something to output the speed of that. Boot Hill, I believe, has weakness efficiency somewhere in his kit. That would work great with Ruan Mei, because now he could possibly 2 to 3 shot somebody's toughness meter. But ideally, and he applies his own weakness. That's another thing that we need to talk about. Break centric characters need to be able to apply their own weakness. I think personally it needs to be on their skill, not their ult. That needs to be a normal thing for a break character to have. Apply weakness so that you can hit multiple enemies and do whatever the you need to get that damage. The reason I say that is because break, it's not that break doesn't care about crit. It's hard to build attack, break, and crit. If some of you guys have seen the stuff going on about Firefly right now, in terms of like what they're stressing about building her, they're stressing whether or not to give her a crit rate body piece or an attack percent body piece. And it's because they can't get the damage output, you know, that ideally that they would want. Boot Hill, similar to how Shui Yi works, their break effect is their damage or their crit rate, right? A character like that where you don't have to focus on crit, you can just focus on break effect. That works in their favor because now they can crit while doing the damage from break effect. If they do break, it's even more damage on top of that. Someone else who, let's say that their kit was based around the attack percent turns into break effect, or the break effect turns into attack percent, and they don't have crit. Well, now you're focused on breaking the character as fast as possible, and then you get to do your damage. So before you, and let's just put it this way, right? Because no one breaks an enemy in one turn, right? Like an elite, no one smashes an elite in one turn except maybe Sushong plus Ruan Mei, or maybe Shui Yi plus Ruan Mei. There's the only two that I can think of that immediately can smash someone's break toughness meter as quickly as I'm thinking. So you would have to take 1 to 3 turns, depending on the team, in order to break down the enemy. At that point, you would have had your buffs, whatever the case is going on, and then you'd be able to apply whatever's going on, right? The damage that you would get from your break effect, the 500% break effect, whatever it is. Most players, the majority of players, are going to do one of two things. They're going to run, again, I'll take any of the new break-centric characters that may be coming out. Boot Hill, Firefly, Sushong, if we're typing like break Sushong, right? Himiko. They're taking these characters, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to hyper carry the fuck out of these characters. I'm going to run Bronya, Sparkle, Ruan Mei, and Harmony MC. I'm going to run Harmony MC, Ruan Mei, and then fucking, you know, Firefly and Bronya, whatever. They're going to hyper carry the fuck out of this one character, when in reality, this one character cannot break fast enough on their own in order to get the job done. They might be like, and once they get to, like, let's say hypothetically to cycle 3, right? Then they can blow somebody the fuck up. They're done. Hey, one cycle, you just wait, bro. When you get to cycle 3, When you get to cycle 3, you're dead. You're dead. You can do whatever you want, but when you get to cycle 3, you're dead. That's too long. Obviously not to some people. Some people are like, man, it takes me 9 cycles to clear it. Cycle 3, I would love cycle 3. Sure, buddy. I understand that. But, you know, going into that, it's a ramp up thing, right? You have ramp up issues with some of these characters. Damage per cycle, I think, would put things into more perspective. For a character's damage performance, right? The value of the damage, the DPS, that would put, I guess it'd be DPR, right? Damage per round, or damage DPC. I don't like the way that sounds, DPC, but damage per cycle. I think that would be more appropriate. Zila's damage per cycle is insane. Jingliu's damage per cycle can be insane. Dill Pickles can be insane. Ratios is pretty damn good. Kafka takes a bit to ramp up. Swan, ramp up. Acheron, she's Acheron. She's going to hit 2 million, possibly 3 million in the first cycle anyway. Argenti takes a little bit to ramp up. Topaz, you can make that work. She does pretty decent damage. Same thing with Yangqing. There are characters that just outright do a ton of damage immediately. You know, it doesn't take them long to get going. People are forgetting what consistency is. If you would elaborate on that, I'm sure that I could like piggyback off of that. But that's a conversation that, like, I don't think the community casually is ready for, right? Because they want damage per 7 cycles. They want that because it makes whatever character look good. That's what they want. But if you start looking at things from a damage per round, I don't want that. I don't want you to give me the implications of what happens in reality. I don't want that. I want what could happen if I had perfect results and perfect relics. Even though I don't in game, even though I don't have that, I want it anyway. I want to use this in my argument. Well, actually, based on the criteria of kachingmange.com and what they've calculated, Jing is better than Acheron. Jing Yuan's damage output is better than Acheron in a 50 cycle clear. In a 50 cycle clear, Fu Xuan's damage performance is significantly higher than Gallagher's. Actually, in what would be the average cycle clear of 8.97 cycles, Hook's damage Hook outperforms Acheron. She's better. That's what they want. Is that a Goban person? No. Goban doesn't even talk like that. Goban doesn't even talk like that. That's crazy, man. Most people care about front-loaded damage and fast clears. They don't know a lot about characters in this game. They don't know a lot of the characters in this game are backloaded like Blade. It's the same people who thought Child was dog compared to Ganyu because he wasn't at 100k in one big number. He did it in a bunch of numbers. Yes, that's actually a really, really solid example of a lot of the things that happen. Clara is a really good example, in fact, perfect example of what you're talking about, Vantage. People still sleep. Well, maybe not now. People are starting to understand. Clara's going to have a big resurgence in a little bit, actually, when a particular character comes out. But with Clara's whole thing is like, I want to get punched. Most players, what they like doing, I'm going to I'm going to advance Clara forward twice. I'm going to put Sparkle and Bronya on the same team. I'm going to advance forward with Clara. I'm going to put Robin on the same team as Clara. Why? For what reason? Her mechanic is to get hit. I don't want this character to get advanced forward. Why would I do that? Oh, well, because hypercarry, because fast, speed. No. When the skill is doing 20k and her counter repulsor blast is doing 90, I need her to get hit 50 times in one cycle. Make that happen, please. You know what? Make a character that delays the action. I don't want Claire to take a turn. Make the reverse Bronya. Give me that. Think Univenturing and Claire Topaz is the best team? I would agree. In fact, if I weren't, because I don't even think that her ultimate is really nice to have, but I'm so comfortable with her getting it pretty much every cycle that I'd even be willing to have Yukong on the team instead of Ting Yun. Like, you could have either or. You could have Yukong or Ting Yun, and I think that particular Claire team, those two, GG's. It's really good. I mean, Ting Yun's just busted. It is what it is, right? But I think a damage per round would definitely be really good. But I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I know someone's gonna comment that, oh my god, bro, 16 minutes. All you had to say was you wanted damage per round. I don't even remember what the. Oh wait, I was talking about damage overall, right? Yeah, I was talking about damage overall. and like Acheron as a whole, and like comparing everybody to Acheron, which I just don't necessarily agree with, but it is what it is. So yeah, that. Even like I said, even like if we're comparing things to Pokemon has it to where like you can give your opponents, you know, the speed boost, or like Trick Room, you make them the faster ones, things like that. Okay, why not? It's a turn-based game that is supposed to last for the next like 7-10 years, something like that. So yes, I think at some point having enemies that benefit characters like Clara, where you make the enemy get another turn so that they can hit Clara, I think that's more beneficial than advancing Clara forward. I know that might be a crazy take to some people because they think action advance is the best thing since sliced bread. But ultimately, and I constantly say this, building teams to function as a team is much more beneficial, and that is only getting proven more and more correct. When the break meta truly gets here, you're going to see that, because the break meta doesn't work like the crit meta. The characters that you're hyper buffing the fuck out of so that they do whatever, they're not going to benefit the characters that don't give a fuck about crit, right? Like you're going to be sitting there giving Sparkle or giving a character that's only focused on break. Let's just say Sushong only focused on break effect, right? And then you're giving a character like her to Sparkle. Like, oh yeah, bro, you want to advance forward? Sure. Where are the Sparkle's buffs going? Oh, those don't matter. You just want the advance forward. What? Bro, just build a better team. What do you mean? It is what it is. It is what it is. But that's it. Yo, thank y'all for watching this video, man. I appreciate that. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, all that kind of fun stuff. You guys said Boot Hill. Who's that? I don't know what that character is. Never heard of that character day in my life. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.